Good morning, everyone. This is Charles Folkard. It's January 27, 2017, about 8 o'clock, not quite. And hey, there's a lot of talk about the wall. Trump's going to build a wall. It's going to be called the Trump Wall eventually, and Trump Towers, Trump Wall. And I think that is a mistake. The United States does not need a wall between Mexico and the United States. And I thought I would explain to you why I think the wall is a mistake. And the people who want the wall, I'm going to show you why I think there's a push for a wall. So let's begin here at whitehouse.gov, executive orders. And I was here this morning and I scrolled down here to this part right here, section 2. It is the policy of the executive branch to secure the southern border of the United States through the immediate construction of a physical wall on the southern border, monitored and supported by adequate personnel so as to prevent illegal immigration, drug and human trafficking, and acts of terrorism. Well, first of all, building a wall is not going to prevent illegal immigration, it's not going to prevent drug and human trafficking, and it's not going to prevent acts of terrorism. But, those little facts, who needs to bother with that? So anyway, their intent on building a wall. Oh, as some of you know, I got on Twitter a few weeks ago now, I guess it's been, and anyway, I was over here this morning, I guess it was, or maybe last night. Maybe it was this morning, yeah, an hour ago. This site here says the Beaner Wall only cost $15 billion over 10 years. Well, we know that anything the government begins to do, when they say it's going to begin at $15 billion, it's going to go higher than $15 billion. But let's just use their figure of $15 billion, and it's only $15 billion. But let's keep in mind now, the United States is $20 billion in debt. And frankly, we can't afford the wall. But hey, that's a minor problem. We can just create fiat currency out of thin air and pay this fiat currency to somebody to build the wall. Now, Trump is saying the wall is going to be paid for by Mexico. Life is so entertaining, isn't it? There's no way that Mexico is going to pay for this wall, folks. Americans are going to pay for this wall one way or the other. Now, I typed in walls in Israel, and as you can see, really the only other country that I know of in the world that has walls between it is Israel. Israel loves walls. Israel loves to keep people out of their country. And even though here in the United States, we're a melting pot, we got people from all over the world, and we're at different cultures and different languages and different religions, and we're just all going to all get together and love everybody, hold hands and sing what's that song? I forget, Chimbuya or something like that. I don't know.
Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya.
I forget. But anyway, come on, folks. I tell you who wants a wall built here in the United States. Yeah. I tell you who's going to end up building this wall. Oh, boy. Huh? They already They're doing this with their hands, man. They're doing, wow, $15 billion. We're going to look at that here in a moment. There's Israeli firms are going to build this wall. I'll bet my shekels on that. That's a sure bet, folks. Now, I lived in South Korea for 5 years, and there was this zone, the demilitarization zone between South and North Korea. And by the way, when I moved to Korea in 2006, there was efforts being made to reunite the North Korean and South Korean and into one, but they elected a new president. I can't remember his name. It's Kim something. Everybody in Korea's name is Kim or Lee, but he was the CEO of Hyundai Engineering. And Hyundai Engineering is one of the largest engineering firms in the world, and they do a lot of work in the East Asia, or I'm sorry, the Western Asia countries, and they build power plants and other large engineering plants. This president of South Korea, and I could look it up, but it doesn't matter. He put a nix to that. No way. There's no way South and North Korea are going to get back together again. You know why? There's no money in that. The United States has 28,000 troops, or 28,000 personnel, military personnel in South Korea. They have 40,000 military personnel in nearby Japan. We basically occupy South Korea, and we occupy Japan. Since the war, World War II, the quote sneak attack, which was a false flag op, if you look into that, I think you'll see that that didn't happen the way we were told. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, the United States doesn't want the reunification of North and South Korea because then there would be no need for all the troops in South Korea and all the troops and military expense in nearby Japan. 28,000 and 40,000, that adds up to 68,000. So close to 70,000 military personnel in those two countries, South Korea and North Korea. And just think of all the expense. Think of the expense of having the military, U.S. military there in those two countries. And every once in a while they get to pop up, what's his name now? Kim Mung something, I can't remember all these names. He pops up out of nowhere. Oops, I'm going to blow up America. I'm going to send an atomic weapon over and blow you up. Then he goes back down and he gets another $1 million in his offshore bank account in Switzerland somewhere. So he's got all kinds of money for doing his pop. He's the boogeyman. You know what? It takes an industrial power. I learned this from Dr. Stuart Crane back in the 1970s. It takes an industrial power to be able to create missiles and atomic weapons, which I don't even think exist, and the rockets and everything. So North Korea doesn't have the industrial base to create any of those weapons. The only other one that might have it would be China, possibly. But North Korea itself, forget it. I brought you here to show you that even though these two countries, actually it's one country divided, and the enemy of North Korea, which the United States wants the enemy because of the money being made. And this is an aside, but just think of how many American military personnel retire out of South Korea and Japan. Then they get their pension, and it's costing the American taxpayer how much money every year to pay the pensions of the retired military. And they get to retire after 20 years. And then they go find another business that they get involved in. So they've got the retirement coming from the military pension. And then they go on and they get involved in other maybe defense-related interests because they've learned the ins and outs, and they get in on another pork project for another 20 years. It's a scam, folks. But let's move on. You know, it doesn't take much to figure out what's going on here, folks. You just got to use your head a little bit. You know, and I'm not that smart, but if I can figure this stuff out, I'm sure most of you can. I got people coming on my blog, on my channel here, telling me what an idiot I am, and I don't know how to use logic, and I mess up sometimes on the words. I said the Antarctica when it's really Antarctica, and I forget. I said Admiral Byrd instead of beard, or beard instead of bird. You know, these people nitpick everything you say, but you know what? It doesn't take an intelligent person. So, you know, obviously I'm not that smart, right? These other people are much smarter than I am. But I've typed in, I asked the question, what is 1% of 1 billion? And I come here. 1% of the estimated cost of the wall as of today is $150 million, folks. 1%. And the profit on a job like this is going to be 10 or 20%. And it's going to go to the Israeli firm. That's why they want to build a wall, folks. Now, I lived in Thailand for 6 years, and I lived all over the place in Thailand. But anyway, I bring you here to show you that I've traveled. I've been to Myanmar. A number of times. I've been to Cambodia. I've been to Vietnam. I've been into Laos to get my stamp on the visa. I've been to Taiwan. I've been all over this area for 6 years. And when I lived in South Korea, I went back and traveled. And guess what? There's no wall anywhere. There's no wall to keep and where they want to be, the best country when I was there is right here. But you can cross over from Laos into Thailand. There's no wall there. There's no wall from Cambodia into Thailand. And now Vietnam is beginning to be a place to be, and so is Cambodia. But there's no walls up there anywhere, folks. You don't need a wall to keep people out of your country, your nation. And by the way, they are a nation, and we're a country now. The only other one that may be no longer a nation is Thailand, because they're letting in so many Europeans. But that's a whole nother subject. But they still keep control of their nation by not allowing Europeans into jobs in the government or the opening a business. You have to get married. Anyway, that's another topic. But there's so much going on that most people don't realize, Americans, because they're spoon-fed what the government wants them to believe. And right now, it's the wall. We need a wall. We got to build the wall. And it's only going to cost $15 billion as of right now. So back here on my Twitter page, this is what I think needs to be done. First, you enforce the existing laws. That's what all these other nations do. Oh, by the way, I was in Qatar for several months. And you know, you need a visa to get into Qatar, and you need an exit visa to get out. They keep track of everybody that comes into their nation, and they know exactly where you live. They got your phone number. They know where you work. You have to have a sponsor to work in Qatar. So those are the kind of things that the United States could do and we wouldn't need to build a wall. We need to first enforce existing laws, deport all the illegals, just like they did in Operation Wetback in 1958 with Eisenhower. Look it up. Nobody's talking about Operation Wetback. They got rid of illegal Mexicans. You're out of here. We need to repeal the Jewish passed, pushed, promoted Immigration Act in 1965. Completely change that. We need to check the visas. If you got a visa to get into this country, you need to check the visa. And by the way, you go to Thailand and you overrun your visa, you pay a fine. And you might even spend a night in jail. Oh, you're over your visa 1 day, 2 days, okay, you pay a fine. It's 1,000 baht a day, I think it was, when I was there. So that's not a lot of money, but, I remember once I made a mistake on my visa, and I was, somehow I misunderstood the visa, and I had to pay several thousand baht overstay. So, and that hurt because I wasn't making a lot of money at the time I was there. So man, that really hurt me. That set me back. So there are things that we can do. In South Korea, if you overstay, man, you're going to jail for the night and you're going to pay a fine, and maybe you get to stay, but most likely you're out of the country, and if you do it enough times, you can't come back in. There's a time limit that you can't come back into South Korea for 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And then the other thing we could do is we could fine and jail those employers which are hiring these illegals. And that would put a stop, because if you come into the country illegally and you can't get work and you don't get welfare and you don't get all these other bennies, you're not going to come to the country. See? And then nobody's talking about this stuff because they want the wall. There's $150 million and only 1% of the wall, folks. That's quite a few new cars and a few new houses and a few vacations and fuel in your jet. And then here's another one, no anchor babies. Hey, when I was in Thailand or South Korea, I remember running across the charter planes, that they were chartering planes to the United States for Vietnamese and other Southeast Asian people, women that were pregnant. And you could fly up until 6 months. And so they were chartering these planes. If you're a pregnant Asian woman and you want to get an anchor baby in the United States, you can board the plane if you're not 6 months pregnant or less. Then you can stay in the United States for 6 months. So now when you stay in the United States at an apartment, and they have these housing where they would bring these Asian women, and then they would have their baby in the United States, and guess what? The baby is an American citizen. And that was going on for quite a while, and it's still maybe going on, So I'm over in Asia, and you can hear about this stuff, and you can look it up, and it was on the internet, and it was pretty easy to find. I bet it'd be hard to find now, but we need to stop the anchor babies. That's the only country in the world that you can have a baby here and it's automatic American with all the benefits. And then if the baby is an American, then the mother and the father and the uncles and the cousins, they can all come over here. Man, Americans are getting ripped off left, right, and center. And but hey, Super Bowl's coming up, so that we got to keep our priorities in order. And a couple more things before we go. You look at those refugees and the males that are getting into Europe. They're coming across on ships and boats and inner tubes and any way they can get across. So what's Trump going to do? Is he going to build a wall out into the ocean? You know, what's to stop him from coming across here and getting in over here, Louisiana, Houston? What are they going to do? Build a wall all the way around the United States, folks? It's ridiculous. And I brought this up several months ago. Look at this, 9 months ago, the invasion of the U.S. and this guy here, George Soros. Anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear will know who he is, and I spell it out here. I only got 52 views because, you know, I'm a nobody. And but I spell it out right here. They're bringing these people into Montana, which is 96% white, and the other 4% is the Indians. So we got third world people living here already. And I bring it up again right here. Invasion of U.S. and Montana by non-whites. Several months ago. And, you know, you can't just, you got to put the pieces all together here to figure out what these people are doing. And anyway, that's my take. And I get tired of hearing all these people pushing, all these white people saying, we're going to build a wall, we're going to build a wall. That's not going to keep people out, and we don't need the wall. We could do a lot of other things for a lot less money, and it would prevent these people from coming in, it would prevent them. Oh, and there's one more thing. And I saved the best for the last. Why don't we take them troops that are over there in South Korea and Japan and all them military guys and every Iraq, Afghanistan, and all over the friggin' world. If we're so worried about invasion from the south on our own border, why don't we put the military on our border, on the southern border, and we get the news out. We fly over Mexico and the pamphlets. We do a propaganda campaign. And we let the word out. You come across our border and you're going to get a bullet right, well, I don't know where they shoot them, but you're going to get a bullet right there. So we all know that there's criminals coming across the border. There's they're bringing drugs. There's weapons going back and forth. It's a war zone. We're being invaded. They admit to that. So they're going to build a wall? It's ridiculous. You know, you shoot a couple of those Mexicans coming, or whoever, there's not just Mexicans coming across the border if you want to know what's really going on. And that's the problem. And a wall's not going to stop these people. You put a snipers up on the border and let them do their job. And I'll bet you there won't be any Mexicans or any of those Southern Americans or there's Arabs or whoever's coming across our border within the sniper range the whole length of the border. And you know what? I'm requesting that Donald Trump send me 1% of this $15 billion that he was going to spend on the border wall, the Trump wall. I want him to send it to me for this advice, because this advice will work. And I don't want you to, Mr. Trump, I don't want you to award the contract to an Israeli firm. I want you to first to take my advice, and if my advice works, you owe me 1% of that wall. You okay? Is that a deal, guy? Huh? You're the deal maker. That's the deal that I don't think you should refuse. Yes, sir, Mr. President Trump. The more I think about it, the more I think that you should take me up on my offer. I think that offer that I've made for us to save $15 billion, bring our troops home from South Korea, Japan, and other parts of the world, put them on our border between Mexico and the United States, implement the plans that I propose in this video, and if they succeed, then I get 1% of the $15 billion of the estimated cost of this wall, which is not going to work anyway. American people win. They don't spend that money. All those troops get to come back home. We're going to save all that money from bringing the troops home. We're going to secure our border. It's a win-win, Mr. Trump. And that'll put me back on my feet. I had a federal bankruptcy judge in San Francisco, and his name was Alan Jaroslavsky. He took away my ability to earn a living because you know what he said in an open courtroom? I have never, in the 12 years I've been on the bench, given a man back his business over the objection of his ex-wife. So he's been taking away the businesses of men for 30 years. He's on the bench still. And by you making this deal with me, that'll put me back on my feet, and I won't have to live only on my check that I get from Social Security any longer. I can live the kind of life that I worked hard for, that I earned. And it'll save Americans money. It's a win-win situation all the way around, Mr. President. And I respectfully request that you carefully consider my deal. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for watching. Embrace the love of the truth. And may the grace of God, our creator of the level, stationary earth, covered by a firmament, be with us all, for we certainly need it. See ya.